Hello, my name is QT and today I will be showcasing the navigation mesh coming to Luabox. The first thing you're going to want to do is load Typebox into retail. I've gone ahead and done that already, so please go ahead and do that and then come back. Once we've done that, you're going to open up the navigation. You can do this by clicking on the toggle navigation button on the Typebox frame. Once it is open, you will get this window with all of the various navigation tools inside. In the General tab, you will see things such as the map ID and the map names. These are what the mesh will use to name the files in your mesh folders, as well as states about how the mesh is doing. For the most part, this is not relevant information for you, but good to have. In the floor setting, which is where we will spend the primary amount of time, you will find an editor and a settings option. The steepness option will dictate how steep an angle needs to be in order to be considered valid. So at this degree, it will not allow anything higher than this. And if you hold shift, it will have a secondary modifier. This is for terrain that does not follow standard steepness calculations, like those random walls you can just run up because reasons. As well, we have render distances. This is going to be for the floor meshing that I'll show you soon, and colors for the meshing, the opacity, how quickly the editor will process new tiles. The distance, this is typically going to always be set to 0 because this is not really meant for what we're doing. This is for large scale collection of paths. And this was a very small, I believe in yards distance. We are going to be doing 30. Anywhere between 20 and 30 is good. 30 is about where I like it. In the editor, we can use these two buttons to show the mesh that we've already created. I've gone ahead and done quite a bit of it myself. This red meshing you'll see is the current completed mesh that we've already taken care of, and it's been optimized. And with the cells icon, your frame rate will definitely drop with this on, but that's fine. It will show in detail how each cell is in terms of its viability for pathing. These really thick red lines are the cubes or chunks rather, that the game is loaded in, so you can just disregard them. And anything that is green is considered 100% viable terrain. Orange is kind of like, it's probably good enough. If we have to use it, we will. And then red, which isn't very common, you can see it underlying in some of these spaces. These are guaranteed cannot walk over it. As well as anything that is just unmarked falls into that same category of no, it will not at any point try to path over these rocks. There are a couple of different editor modes that we can use. I will be showing them later about how we can record these meshes. We don't really touch much in the cube or the navigation connection areas. These are from a separate project. If you do have an idea of what you're doing with these things, you can use them, but it's not necessary. We have a tests function here that will allow us to just see to make sure everything's working well. It has 3 different modes, a random position, our position, or a target's position. So I can just choose the player's position. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the meshing because it's just not necessary and it's just laggy. And we're going to have it navigate to it. It will quickly route a position and continue to reroute as it decides if the position between you and the next point is good or not. We can have it set a random position within the already completed mesh, and it should take us to it, as we will demonstrate now. It is going to take me way over here. I've done quite a bit of this area. And once that's completed, it will stop. This just showcases the power of the mesh. If you notice, it is continuously rerouting these steps as it's getting closer because it is doing distance calculations based on current position and the position of the next point and deciding if it's better. These long-term positions that it creates immediately are more general ideas, and they're of course very accurate, but the finer collection of points, wow, I see it put me in a really interesting position. Let's go ahead and just navigate out of here. definer positions are calculated as we get closer to the threshold of each point. Additional to these actions, other than navigate, we have just the get path, which will just show us the path instead of having to navigate to it. There's also an optimize option that we can use to specifically define paths that we want to optimize, like if there's like a very, very specific way to do things, but this is not something that we're going to be doing yet. We can also check with a Boolean to see if our target is reachable, as in is from our current position, there's enough connections to make it there through the mesh. Disregard the teleporting, that's not of any concern. We can also get the distance, and then of course stopping the navigation. If you want the breakdown of each and every step, it is under the path details, and it'll tell you exactly how many yards you've elapsed to get to each point, and you can also get some information on how long it's going to take down here. Once this is completed, I will showcase the editor types and how we can generate the various pathing that you'll see. This is taking me like to this position here. I have most of the southeastern part of Tiergard Sound meshed, so it could have taken me anywhere from Borealis to Freehold to the actual Freehold area in Tiergard. Once it has reached its position, it will stop, reset its information, and that's all there is to that. Now that we've done that, we're going to go to a position that we have not been to yet. Let's go ahead and run over to up here where I haven't done any meshing, and I will showcase how to use the meshing. Now there's a few things to remember when doing the meshing. The way that objects are rendered in the game is that only things that we look at are rendered within the view model of the player. Now, what this means for anyone doing recording is that this distance that we have set, it is set this way because anything larger than about 30 yards will surpass the view distance or the view model of the player on the south edge of your screen, and it could potentially cause object or areas to be loaded without the objects involved. And if the objects are not involved, when they are actually loaded into the memory, when they are looked at by a player using it, it will try to path over an object, which is not what we want at all. So all that really means is when you are doing any recording, simply move forward and keep this distance at a maximum of 30. As long as you do that, it will never be an issue. In the event that there are problem areas, I will try to find one in this to showcase, but if I can't, then whatever. There are methods using the editor to change a particular position and redesign it specifically. And there are also ways to force certain areas. Bridges come to mind when talking about this, as they are often considered dangerous areas because of how small they often are. If we showcase these ones are pretty good. Yeah, it's a little bit vibrant. But for the most part, like here's a good one. This one will likely have a very hard time pathing over it due to the fact that it's completely dangerous. So what we can do is, if this is an issue, we can hold down control and we can force the position. We will generate road, start, and force the position. This will I'll tell it that, hey, this is okay now. If we go ahead and save, every time that you do save, it will lag a little bit based on how much you have ready to go, which is not really avoidable. It is writing all the nav information to your file system. So this can take a second or two. Now that we've done that, this will stay, and it will now be able to path from one point to the other. As you can see, it pathed over it just fine. So let's go ahead and run up to this new area that we have not meshed yet. We're going to go to generate road, or rather record road. We're going to set our distance, about 20 to 30 is good. So let's just go with 25 for safeness. And keep the editor speed. This one, with this low amount of distance, you don't need it that high. It doesn't have to be 1,000. I keep it about 500, and that's good enough. It's 500 cells per tick, which is 10 times per second, so it's 5,000 cells a second. We are not moving fast enough to do this, so it shouldn't be an issue. We're going to go ahead and hit start record, and as soon as we enter a new area, which is dictated by this is the edge of the current mesh, it will start to navigate and it will begin to record these areas. Now, you need to try to be as diligent as possible about getting to every possible position that you can think of. This will be the difference between having a very solid mesh and having something lackluster. So you as the recorder will need to take care of this fine. So we're going to go ahead and record a little bit here. These positions are good. As you can see, these here will be dictated as a low danger area around it when it's done. I'll show you after. And the area that the actual object is on is completely just nullified. It doesn't exist in the mesh at all. It knows not to use it. This is all because we are looking at the objects. So they are being loaded and then the mesh is being calculated correctly. Let's do just a little bit more here and we'll get we'll showcase what this unoptimized meshing will look like. It can be a bit problematic to walk around with all this, but you'll get used to it and it's not too bad. Let's do just a little bit more here. I'll just circle this area. Alright, now that we've completed this area, full enough, I'd say this little part's pretty good. It's good to go and record for about maybe 60 seconds to 90 seconds at a time to reduce the amount of problems you're going to have with the saving. I haven't had it crash on me yet when saving, but I have had it take quite a bit of time when I took too much time to record. So you'll see soon that this will all now optimize, and all these areas that you are unsure of will be optimized to dictate whether or not they are valid, low danger, or high danger, or completely invalid. So all of these rocks, it's going to try to not use these tiles around the rocks, and here on these trees, etc., etc. Now it should be able to completely path down all of these areas. This here looks good enough. There's enough green spots that it can go from point to point without any issue. Let's go ahead and just make sure of that. This is another thing that you're going to have to be very diligent about, is just trying things out in places that you think might be a problem. So this is fine. Had no issue making it from point A to point B. The way I'm doing this is I will just find a position, set it by hitting the player option here. It'll set my current position to these 3 values. And then I'll run to a different position where I want to test from, and theoretically it should just take me there. You can also find any more information in the chat about what it's trying to do. That's basically the gist of how the navigation recording is going to work. One more thing I can show you is that if you make a mistake, then what you'll be able to do is, this is a very high intensity option, so be very careful. You'll set this to delete, and it will actually just delete the cells out of the mesh. Like I said, this is very high intensity. This will lag your computer a little bit. It's fine. You just want to turn it on, and with the cell view enabled, you'll see it. Just get rid of it. And then once you're done, just stop it. Sometimes with the lag, it can be a problem. Resave it, and it should now go away. It should redictate the edge of this area. As you can see. So now it will not use this spot anymore, and it's no longer valid. We can do this if you accidentally mesh somewhere that should not be meshed, like for some reason it tried to mesh this wall or something for some odd reason, even though you can't get up it. Or there are certain areas in the game that we will have to steer 100% clear of for the moment. These are garrisons. Pretty much any
changing phases areas. So you know how the garrison, the level 1, 2, and 3 are completely different in terms of the ground structure? These will need to be avoided right now. Once we've fixed that, then it will not be an issue. We'll have to have a different handler for this. But until that point, as well as elevators fall into the same category, and zeppelins, boats, anything moving. Basically, we're only doing static items currently. Once we have those things handled internally, it shouldn't be an issue anymore. But for now, these will have to be avoided. And if you do make the mistake of meshing near it, you will have to delete it, or else your mesh will be corrupted. And then you will lose all the progress that you had on it. The meshes are in separate individual files, so it's not like it's the end of the world. You could theoretically find which one has that part in it, but it's not viable as an option. You will just have to remesh the zone. So I suggest just steering clear of any elevators. That's why we keep the distance so small at 25 or 30, so that you are only going 30 yards in front of you, which you'll never make the mistake by accident. It would have to be a deliberate issue. I believe that is everything for this part of the video. We will have more information about the nav moving forward. If you would like to contribute to it, there is you can talk to Moose, and we can talk about what you can do to help contribute to generating and everything of the like. In the end here, I will leave you with a path right to Freehold from where we are, which is quite the distance. Actually, I should probably turn off all this because I think I'm lagging out my computer. So let's go ahead and just turn these off. Actually, we'll leave this one on. It's not too laggy. And it's now going to take me all the way to Freehold from, I was up here, up in the top by Morales. But because I've meshed the entire path between Morales and Freehold, it will take me to Freehold. I didn't have to tell it to do anything. I have a pre-designated position for the instance portal for Freehold, which is something that we will have to do internally. And after that's done, it will very simply just keep us going. As you can see, it also does not take us to the ground. It will take us to the base position. Oh, it got stuck. So, interesting. I didn't know that would happen, but it basically found an invalid path within this. This is likely because I did not mesh the ground, and it actually rerouted itself. I didn't do that. It went back to the last known point and then rerouted without that particular point in mind. That was definitely intentional, I promise. The way that currently we're keeping us at the very top of the water is just by ascending while we're in the water. In the future, once we hit the apex of the water level, we will, stop spamming jump. But for now, this is what we're doing to do it. It's going to take a sec, but he will make it to Freehold. If it does find any positions that it considers to be too rough, it will try to jump over them. And now we are within Freehold, where I also have meshed quite a bit of the ground. Actually, I believe I've done the entire dungeon at this point. So I would be able to go to any position in Freehold and just walk there no problem. The whole position is done. And I made some figurines for fun. Thank you for watching. QT out.